Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome back to The Average Fisherman. Got the old John Wayne coffee mug here. Let me tell you guys something, man. If you have a fresh market in your area, the grocery store, their breakfast blend coffee will put some giddy up in your saddle like nothing else. I'm telling you, man, that is some good stuff. Jeez. Anyway, so the weather here started off really crappy. Like at 4:30 this morning, there's been lightning and thunder pretty much all morning long until about 20 minutes ago. Now the sun's coming out, and you'll see like the video is going to get brighter and darker as the sun goes in and out. But it's going to be pretty rainy later on. So there's only a couple hour span here where the sun's out. But anyway, on today's episode, because I'm stuck inside, I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to answer some common questions that I get, some criticisms on the channel, and we're going to discuss a few things about the lures and specific equipment that I use and why I use them. Primarily being the color of lures that I think that nobody talks about anymore that is surprisingly productive. I've used it for years with really good effect, but you never hear anybody talk about these colors anymore, and they're super productive under certain circumstances. So we'll get right into that. So one of the things that I got a question about was the brand of tungsten weights that I use. I said it on a channel, it's NACO, but somebody wrote in and said, you know, how do you spell it and stuff like that. So here it is. This is the brand that I use. It's NACO, N-A-K-O. And these are tungsten weights, and I like them because if you can see inside the package right there, it actually has it on the weight, how much it weighs. These happen to be 3/16. This is my preferred weight when I'm using like a power bait Pit Boss, which is one of my favorite beaver style plastic baits to go out and find fish. For some reason, bass love the power bait Pit Boss, man, especially in the Bama bug color. The green pumpkin works as well too, but the Bama bug really seems to get them. My little small ones, the 1/8 ounce, that's just the simple Academy brand, the H2O Express. I don't see the need to go out and buy like expensive tungsten bullet weights for some reason. So those are the two brands that I use. The EWG hooks that I use. Let me explain something to you guys. I love Gamakatsu. Okay, I have a ton of Gamakatsu 3/0 EWG hooks. 3/0 is the standard size that I use. I leave it rigged up on my reels when they're sitting out in my frequent use rack, and that's pretty much all I use because the size lures that I prefer tend to go well with the 3/0 EWG. However, I don't use the Superline hooks because I don't like that really, really thick wire. I'm not one of those guys who fishes with 65-pound braid, which I think is silly. I use 20-pound braid on bass rigs, or 10-pound on spinning bass rigs. So I like the thinner wire EWG hooks because I'm a finesse fisherman, and I like those smaller gauge wire hooks. One of my favorites happens to be these, the VMC wide gaps. Now, the reason I like them so much is a little bit of detail that I don't think a lot of people get. And that is, I use a Palomar knot usually when I'm attaching my line to my hook. And I don't use leaders except for that new rig that I have so I can use up some of my old fluorocarbon. But 99% of the time I'm not using leaders. So I tie the Palomar knot directly to the hook. Well, VMC has this little polymer stuff that they put where the gap of the hook is, so you never have to worry about your line getting caught in that wire gap where it wraps around and touches the main wire and cutting or braiding your braid. So that's one of the reasons I like VMC a lot. That small little detail makes a difference because yes, I have had to retie line before because my line got caught in that little gap there and it started to wear through my braid. So that little detail makes a big difference, which is one of the reasons I like VMC hooks. That little bit of polymer there, wonderful thing. Let me get another sip of coffee. We'll address another issue on the channel. One of the other things I got to comment on is the fact that I always roll cast. Okay, I've addressed this in several videos before, but it's been a while, and I realize there's a lot of new people to the channel, so I'll just explain it. I can't throw overhand anymore. About 2 years ago, I tore my bicep tendon here, so I had to have a surgery. The scar is pretty faint, but it's right there. And when I was in therapy, they over-rotated my hand while there was a big hole drilled through my radius, and it spiral fractured my radius, all right? So I had to have a second surgery a month after the first one to have a titanium plate put in my arm. Now, I don't know if it shows up too well on the camera, but you see I have a scar running from here all the way down to here in my forearm, and I have a big titanium plate in there like this big. So in the process of having that second surgery, it paralyzed a lot of the muscles in my arm. I can't turn my hand straight up anymore. I can't do this with my right hand. This is as far as it turns. And as you see, in order to get it to go that far, I have to rotate my shoulder, right? So I can't get it under normal circumstances to turn any further than this. And when I do turn it that far, these three fingers stop working. I know it's a bunch of weirdness, but that's the thing. So I can't control my rod anymore when I'm trying to throw overhand like this, okay? Because it's primarily a right-handed technique, okay? Overhand throwing with the right hand. But if I roll cast, that's mostly using your left hand to control the rod tip. So I can do that. So that's why you see my cast are almost always underhanded roll type cast. I'm not some fishing noob. It's just the fact that my arm doesn't work like it used to since I had to have that surgery. And it paralyzed a lot of the muscles in my forearm. So I can't overhand anymore with any sense of control. Plus, this motion, if I'm doing it with force, causes what nerves I do have in the area to kind of get snapped across that plate, and it really freaking hurts. If you've ever had tennis elbow, like a really bad case of tennis elbow, do that every time you cast overhand and you'll stop doing it with a quickness. Let me tell you, it's painful. So let's get into the main point of this channel, or this video. So if you go and you look at other YouTube channels, or you talk to the pros, Roland Martin is a famous one for this, they always want to talk about certain colors of lures. And there's one that always gets overlooked. I have no idea why it gets overlooked. But especially Roland Martin's is a huge fan of the green pumpkin, right? And so am I. Like, I have a lot of lures in green pumpkin. I have them in blue and black, that kind of stuff. But there's one color that you practically never see anybody talking about anymore, and that's the straight up pumpkin seed. So let me show you guys what that looks like. These are Zoom Baby brush hogs, or this is actually a regular brush hog in pumpkin color. Okay, so the color green pumpkin, that should be no surprise, is a mix of this and green. Okay, that's where the brownish tint comes from in green pumpkin. It's from the pumpkin color, which is kind of brownish looking like that. Okay, so you never hear anybody talking about these classes of colors, the browns, anymore. And of all the colors that you can use, those are the most natural looking as far as forage goes that bass are naturally after. And I'm going to show you a couple more. These culprit 7.5 inch worms in pumpkin seed is a little more translucent than that brush hog is in pumpkin. Okay, and the pumpkin seed is a little more tan or neutral brown as compared to the orangier color of the pumpkin. But you can tell what I'm getting at here. These natural brown colors. And these that are ordered off of Temu, these little brown worms here. And there's another color that used to be really super popular back in the day. Back in the day, I mean in 80s and early 90s, that you practically never see anybody fish anymore, and that is motor oil. So I have these power bait curly tail worms in motor oil. This is just one of those colors that is supernatural, okay? Not meaning supernatural like Dracula supernatural, but is really natural looking in the water. The only issue is that in muddier waters, that's truly muddy, these lures kind of can disappear because of the brown color. So I get why it's not as popular as it used to be, but in clearer or in tannic waters or something like that, I promise you there are a few colors that look as natural to fish as this pumpkin color, okay? I'm not going to open up the culprits because they're sealed, but let me show you these zooms. This is just a really natural looking color. It looks like bugs. It's the color of many different bugs, or night crawlers especially have this orangey brown color. And this is a color that I've used for years to really good effect. But practically no one talks about it anymore, and I have no idea why. Maybe they're trying to keep it a secret. Maybe they don't want to pass along the colors that are super effective or something like that. You see a lot of people going over to colors like red shad and stuff like that, or gold shad that are black in a combination of like really shiny colors to get bass's attention and stuff like that. You'll get reaction bites off of lures like that. But what you're really looking for is what I like to call a foraging bite. You want to get the bass to think this is food. Okay, I'm not looking for a sudden, oh, let me get that reaction from a bass when I'm finesse fishing. I'm trying to trick the bass into thinking that whatever my lure is that I'm throwing into the water is something that they can actually eat, that is actually food. And this color really does it. I'm telling you guys, the pumpkin or pumpkin seed colors, if you're looking for a natural colored bait, an alternative to green pumpkin because you're just tired of throwing green pumpkin, or in certain circumstances, green pumpkin isn't what gets them. You know, maybe it's too dark. There are circumstances in super clear water where green pumpkin is just, it's too dark of a color and you want something that's a little more translucent. So let me show you these motor oil ones, these power baits. And I'm one of the few people that actually really likes the smell of power bait. Yeah, I don't know, it smells like victory. So if you see in the water, this is kind of translucent when it gets wet. And that looks really, really natural to a fish. When you have these super opaque colors, these super dark colors and stuff like that, they'll get the bass's attention. But when they're in a wary, or if they're feeling pretty finicky that day, this is the kind of color and stuff that can convince them to bite most times, okay? Something that looks like a natural piece of bait or something that looks like natural food that fish is naturally going to want to go over there and pick up and have a bite of. More coffee. So that's one of the tricks that I like to pull if I'm getting like bass and I know they're there and I'm seeing them, but they're just not biting. I'll swap over to a super really natural color that's really inobtrusive. It's not really standoutish to the fish, and it's not really, you know, sparkly or anything like that. The pumpkin colors. And I've used that to a really, really good success under a multitude of circumstances, but especially when the water is just slightly stained to clear. Here in Louisiana, we get that tannic looking water. It's clear but dark. Okay, it's like this dark tea colored brown, but it's really, really clear. That's under the circumstances where this color really shines. And if I can't get them to bite on anything else, I guarantee you can get them to bite on a pumpkin color under those circumstances, especially in that watercolor, because for some reason, well, I know the reason, because this looks like food. Okay, that color really, really shines under those circumstances. So if you're struggling to get bites with the standard colors that everybody else talks about, the green pumpkins, the watermelon reds, you know, the red shads, the black and blue, give pumpkin seed a try. And you'll see more than likely that that'll turn things around. That natural brown color will oftentimes get bass to bite under circumstances when no other colors will, because it looks like food. So give that a shot. I hope everybody's doing well. I'll be at work this weekend. Monday looks to be another stormy day, but we have a couple of days coming up this week where I'm hoping to be able to get out on a kayak. I'm really looking forward to pan fishing, but I'm also, as always, I always have a bass combo with me ready to go because, well, bass fishing is fun. Why not? So I'm going to be doing the sockeye and bluegill thing again, trying to figure them out, and doing some bass fishing on the side just for entertainment. So I hope to see you guys then. Tight lines and stay safe, my friends.